More than a quarter of Canadians have mortgages with a variable rate. The number of high-leverage uninsured mortgages is more than 25%, according to the Bank of Canada. The bank suggested today that it will raise interest rates soon, and some experts predict 5 interest rate increases next year. How many thousands of families are at risk of losing their homes because this Prime Minister has ignored the inflation crisis?
And then the party apparatus, because they don't really know how to spend money effectively, communicating with people to get them to vote for them. They think money will do it. They won't support them unless they raise a certain amount of money.
My question is simple. Will the government mandate the Bank of Canada to maintain its 2% target? Yes or no?
Yes, we will renew the mandate of the Bank of Canada, but we will also continue to step up with record investments in housing. And
how bad does the cost of living crisis have to get before this Prime Minister gets a grip?
That infrastructure bill that was just passed, that's nowhere near as stupid as it could have been. And if you look at the White House messaging, well, that's something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something. It's
something, man.
Yeah.
And if you look at the White House messaging, it's about 2% diversity, inclusivity, and equity. And that's not too bad, because 0 is asking for too much, as we already discussed. And, you know, I've talked to lots of Democrats and lots of Republicans, and there are people of goodwill who are competent on both sides, and they're trying. Well, you know, people don't understand here. So you're a congressman federally. All right, so I went to Washington and I talked to a whole bunch of them trying to find out. I read this book a long time ago called Systemantics. It's a great book by John Gall. It's a great book, Systemantics. One of its dictums is the system does not do what its name says it does. And so then the question is, what does it do? Well, then you have to look. So like I worked at social services for the Alberta government when I was a kid, and social services, what do they do? Well, I was tasked, weirdly enough, when I was about 19 to find out, to update a big consulting company's analysis of spending of the social services department. They had paid them some hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I was just working as a summer intern, and they said, update this. And I thought, okay. And so I phoned around trying to get the figures, and no one knew what they were. The system had no idea where the money it was spending went. So I was trying to get stats like, how much of the welfare money spent actually goes to recipients? Couldn't find the data. And then I realized, okay, social services, what does it do? It probably spends 95% of its money on bureaucrats who are implementing social service programs. And then I thought, well, should I be cynical about that? It's like, well, no, it's actually hard to distribute money. And if 5% of it goes to its target, that might not be too bad. It's not great, by the way, but it's better than running at a deficit or 0. And many charities are like that. If they get 10% to the recipients, they're doing pretty well. And you can be cynical about that. In any case, when I went to Washington, I thought, okay, these are Congress people. What do they do? Well, hypothetically, they analyze policy, they set out strategy, they talk to their constituents. No, they spend 25 hours a week fundraising. 25 hours a week, both sides. They can't do it in their congressional offices because that's illegal. So they have other offices in these industrial warehouses, you know, with drop ceilings, and they basically are telemarketers 25 hours a week. Well, how the hell can those people get anything done? And then I had lunches where there was some Democrats and some Republicans, generally more junior members, just trying to get to know each other. And I had them go around the table and say why they went into public service. And you couldn't have asked for more patriotic, heartfelt declarations of virtuous intent. And you couldn't tell the Democrats from the Republicans, not on the basis of that. And so then you say, well, why did they fundraise 25 hours a week? Well, they have to be elected every 2 years. And then the party apparatus, because they don't really know how to spend money effectively, communicating with people to get them to vote for them. They think money will do it. They won't support them unless they raise a certain amount of money. Well, how the hell can those people do their job? And so you sit down and you talk to them, and the vast majority of them they're even self-sacrificing. It's like, it's not a job I would want. There isn't a lot of security in it. If you're competent, you could go do something else and be paid more and be harassed a hell of a lot less. They're trying. And when you lay out the sorts of arguments that I've been laying out, I rarely talk to anyone who's competent, of goodwill, and I don't care whether on the Democrat or Republican side, doesn't see the logic in this. And so what we got to be aware of on the conservative end and on the leftist end is, especially you guys in the States, is do not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, I went to New York City here 4 days ago. That's a great city. You have a great country. It's a work of art. Don't screw it up with facile criticisms. Like, there are things wrong, because there always are, but the devil's in the details, man. You got to do a detailed analysis. It's like, the leftists say, well, the whole judicial system is corrupt. Well, what's the evidence? Well, the disproportionate incarceration rate. It's like, that's a fairly damning indictment. Where exactly is it going wrong? Exactly, precisely, procedurally, so that we could fix it. Well, the whole thing has to be burned to the ground. It's like, yeah, well, no, and you aren't thinking, so you're not helpful. And then you take a problem like that apart, the differential incarceration rate, man, that's a rat's nest. It's complicated, man. It's tangled up with slavery, it's tangled up with Jim Crow, it's tangled up with differential exposure to literacy in childhood, it's tangled up with single-parent families, violent communities, the drug war, drug policy, just to name a few. And then, we could say whatever implicit racism still exists, because that's not zero. It's very, very complicated. And people don't want a detailed on-the-ground analysis of such problems. What they want to do is label it with a low-resolution representation, so like a 1-pixel representation. And then they want to contrast that with the wrong 1-pixel representation. Then they want to feel the moral virtue that they would have felt if they had actually solved the problem.
So how do we fix the resolution? And when I ask you this, I include myself in this. I'm talking about news every day on the show. I try to do it in the most honest way possible. Obviously, I have my biases. I'm not pretending that I have no opinions. But often when you get bludgeoned over the head with sort of the low resolution stuff enough, your resolution starts getting screwed up. So how do we arbitrage those two positions?
Well, it's not just bias, right? It's not just bias. It's also heuristics. And there's a difference. Like, a heuristic is a functional simplification. And we use heuristics all the time. Like, the image you see of me is a heuristic, because you are not seeing me. Well, first of all, I'm not there. Second, even if you were seeing me, if we were in person, you'd still be seeing a heuristic, because you don't see my subatomic structure. You don't see my cellular structure. You don't see the context that I'm embedded in. You see an iconic image that stands for the reality that's too complex to perceive. And so it's not easy to tell when you're using an appropriate heuristic. And the basic rule of thumb is you use the simplest thumbnail you can use that will get the job done.